Hey guys, I'm Eddie Rodriguez. Thanks for watching my video. Today I'm going to be taking a look at Dead of Winter. Dead of Winter is a semi-cooperative game. It is a zombie game, but it takes place, there's a zombie apocalypse and it's the aftermath of it. So basically everything has sort of happened already and winter is setting in, and the players are part of a colony that's trying to survive in the aftermath of the zombie apocalypse. So you're struggling against, zombies knocking down at your door, trying to eat your people, and cold is setting in, and then you have the other players to deal with because, as I said, it is a semi-cooperative game. In this game, each player is going to have, there's a main objective for all the players to accomplish, but every single player is going to have their own individual goals of what they're trying to achieve, and there may or may not be a betrayer in there that has sort of the opposite plan. He wants to really kind of ruin everybody's day, but he's got to be real sneaky about it. And we're gonna go down and check out the rules, check out the components, and I'll let you know how to play this game, and then I'll give you your thoughts. So without further ado, let's get in here. Alright, so here we have the game all spread out, and as you can probably tell right off the bat, this game does take up a lot of space. This is a pretty, average size table, and I can't fit everything in it, so you're gonna need a fairly large area in order to play, especially if you got 4 or 5 players. The game goes 2 to 5 players, so for 4 or 5 players you're gonna need a lot bigger table space. So that's one kind of warning right off the bat. What you're seeing here, though, is there is a main board up here which represents the colony, and there's going to be a lot of things going on there, and then you have these separate locations that have their own decks. And I'm going to kind of zoom in on each of these things individually as I go over the rules. Alright, so here we have the colony board, and I'm going to kind of go over what you're seeing here. So as you can see, we'll zoom in over there. It says the colony, and this space there really doesn't do anything, just says the colony. You have a deck of cards here which represent the main objective for the current scenario, and there's different scenarios. You have these cards here are crisis cards that are going to affect everybody each round, and it's well, I'll go into those individually. You have a round tracker here that shows you how many rounds you have left to complete the scenario. You have a morale tracker here that if that reaches 0, the players will lose. These square spaces here with the numbers on them are entrances to the colony that the zombies will populating. Pretty much everywhere that you see this biohazard symbol, that's where zombies will be appearing, and anywhere that you see these sort of dotted lines, that's where the characters can go, or survivors. And as you can see, there's a big long area here where you're going to be putting a lot of survivors. That's where most of the characters, when you first acquire them, that's usually where they're going to first appear. And then you have this area here is the food supply. You're going to be needing food to feed your survivors, and also to help upgrade your dice, which I'll go into, and those are the food tokens. You also have locations, so you have like the library here, the school, we have the hospital, and again, each location has these biohazard symbols, so they'll have zombies appearing there. And you'll have these areas with dotted line, so it shows where your survivors can go. Each area also has its own deck of cards here of stuff that you can search for, and these ear icons, that's just to track in case you make noise at that given location, which may attract zombies. And if you look up here on each location, there's a bunch of icons, and from left to right is the likelihood of you finding that particular icon. So at the library, you're most likely to find a book item, then you may find fuel, food, equipment, and people. Pretty much you want to pay attention to the very first one. That's what you'll most likely find there, and then everything else sort of drops off in likelihood. So if we look over here at the school, you'll find food. At the grocery store, we'll find some food and medicine. If you go over to the police station, you'll most likely find a weapon and fuel. Each player has a player mat that they're going to use to track certain things, so you can keep your dice there and shows when if you've used them or not. It also has a round summary to so you can keep track of what you're doing, and also tells you some of the different things that you can do on your turn. We'll go into more depth on that. Okay, so at the beginning of the game, you're going to select a scenario that you're going to play off. And there's just a bunch of different ones, and usually what you can do is if you look at the bottom of it, if we can get a good look at it, it'll tell you the playtime of that current scenario. So this one's short, there's medium, and there's long scenarios. And this will tell you sort of the setup for the game, how many zombies to put out, and what your sort of victory objectives are. However, each player is also going to be given one of these secret cards, and these are going to be your secret objectives for the game. Each player in this game is going to win or lose individually. You don't really win as a team, though your goals may or may not be aligned. And you're going to be given your card, and you're going to read it, and your card's going to tell you what you need to do in order to individually win. Now, most of the cards will say you also need to complete the main objective, but then you have some other stuff that you need to do on top of that. However, there is a small chance that one of the cards will say betrayal on it. And that means you're essentially a traitor, and you have your own totally unique agenda. Most of the time it's going to require that the colony's morale will be at 0, which means all the other players will most likely be losing. In any given game, there's usually only one possible traitor. There's usually not more than that, and you could play without a traitor, but we found that playing fully co-op, the game really loses something. So I highly recommend that you play with the traitor mechanic. It just adds so much to it. So you're going to be given a secret agenda, which you're going to put underneath your player mat there. You can reference at any time. And then each player is going to be dealt 4 character cards, and you're going to choose 2 to start the game. So let's look at the character cards here. So when you receive a character, you have their name, and they have a large number up here in a circle, which is that character's influence, sort of their social standing in the colony. The only thing this matters is at the beginning of the game, the player whose group leader has the highest influence will be the start player for the game, and some situations will arise where a character has to be chosen to die at a given location, and usually the player, the character with the lowest influence will be the one chosen to die. So having higher influence tends to be useful. Then you have 2 numbers here. You have a fight number and a search number. This number is how good that character is at that given action, and it's the die that you have to spend. You're going to have these dice that you're going to roll at the beginning of a round, and they're gonna stay whatever you roll, they're gonna stay out, and you spend them to do different actions. So for instance, this character here, Maria, she has a 4 fight. That means if she wants to attack a zombie, she needs to spend a die of 4 or greater, but she's good at searching. She needs to spend a die of 2 or greater to search. And then each character has a special ability. Sometimes it'll say where it'll have a location. So this one says school, so she can only use this ability when she's at the school. If we look at this guy here, Daniel, his ability says anywhere, so he can use his ability anywhere. And sometimes an ability will have a number next to it, and that means you have to spend a die to do that as well, but not all of them have that. So after you've decided which characters you want to use, and you want to take a look at your secret objective, make sure that the characters can probably help that objective, and you're going to select one character to be your group leader, and any other characters you get after that will be followers. Now the group leader, the only effect that it has in the game is just going to help determine who's going to be the start player to start off the game, and basically the player whose group leader has the highest influence will get the start player token, which basically the player who has a start player token will go first in the round, and also can resolve any ties on anything whenever there's any kind of voting effect or such. You're also going to get a starting hand of 5 cards of these starter items here, and they're basic cards that you can use for different effects. There's medicine, there's food, what else is there? Medicine and food are a lot there. There's junk cards, and then there's fuel cards. Now, each card, if you look at it, it tells you what kind of card it is, and it has a special icon which will be referenced by other cards, and it has a ability that when you spend this card, you'll get that ability. So for instance, medicine lets you get rid of wound, food lets you add food to the colony's supply, and so on. Now, most of the cards will say waste pile before their effect, and that means when you use this card, it's going to go into the waste pile, which we'll kind of talk about that in a minute. Some cards will say event on them, and that doesn't mean that when you receive that card, you must do the event. That just means that you can use that card during your turn, and it will be removed from the game rather than going into the waste pile. So you're going to have your characters, you're going to have your cards, and then you're going to start a round, starting with the... so the first thing that's going to happen in a round is that we're going to reveal the crisis for that round. So we'll flip over the top card, and it's a crisis that's going to affect all the players. And basically, it's going to be asking for a certain type of card, and the players are going to need to donate a certain number of those cards in order to avoid the crisis. If you fail to do that by the end of the round, then there's going to be some kind of negative consequences. But additionally, if the players can add more cards than is required, and usually it's 2 additional cards more than what it requires, then the players will actually gain morale for overcoming adversity. So that's the first thing that's going to be shown on a round. Then the second thing that's going to happen is that players are going to take their action dice, and they're all going to roll them at the same time, and they're going to put them on their card here where it says unused action dice. Now at the beginning of the game, you have a number of dice equal to 1 plus the number of characters you have. So you have 3 dice to start off with. If later on you acquire more characters, then you'll get additional dice that you can use. But you don't add the die in the middle of a round. It's only at the beginning of a round is when you check how many dice you're going to have for that round. So after you roll your dice, then the players are going to take their actual turns. So what are the things that you can do on your turn? Well, the first thing that you can do is you can, there's actions that require you to spend a dice, and then there's some actions that don't require you to spend a dice. One of the actions that requires a die is the attack option. So if you have a person that's at the same location as a zombie, they can take the attack option. They're simply going to spend a die and move it over here to the used action dice. They need to spend a number equal to or greater than their attack ability, and you automatically remove the zombie when you attack it. However, each time you attack a zombie, you have to roll the exposure die, and this is a die that you're going to come to hate in this game, because it's a 12-sided die, and 6 of the sides are blank like this, which means nothing special happened. You may roll this sort of teardrop skull icon, which means your character received a wound. You're going to put one of these wound tokens on your character. If your character receives 3 wound tokens, they will die. Unless it says otherwise, it's always 3 wounds. And there are 3 of those wound tokens on the die. And then there are 2 of these frostbite sort of snowflake thing. That means frostbite. If you are afflicted with frostbite, then you will put this token in your character. It counts as a wound itself, and each turn it will give you an additional wound. So frostbite is pretty bad. It will definitely kill your character in short order. And then the worst thing that can happen on the die is there's this tooth icon. There's only 1 of it on there, so it's a 1 in 12 chance. If you roll this, that means your character has been bitten by a zombie and immediately dies. Yes, you can just immediately lose your character right on the first roll of the game. And then what's worse is that if that character happens to be at a location where there's another character, so say there was 2 characters here, she rolls the bite icon and gets killed, the infection spreads to any other survivors that are there. Now the new survivor has a choice to make. They can either let that survivor die as well and the infection stops, or they can try to avoid it. They will roll the exposure die. If they roll a blank, they will not be affected and the infection ends. If they roll anything else, that character will also die, and then the infection will spread to any other characters that are there. So if you have multiple characters at a location, or if this happens at the colony, that could be very devastating. Now, every time a character dies, regardless of where they are in the board, the players will lose a morale. Now, if your morale reaches 0, you will lose the game. Another action that requires a die is the search action. So when a a character is at a location other than the colony, they can take the search action. They will spend a die equal to their search number, and they will look at the deck. Now, by default, you will look at one card, and you can choose to keep that card. However, let's say it's a card you don't like, and you want to search more. Well, on that same action, without spending an additional die, you can look at more cards by adding these noise tokens. When you just simply announce that you're going to make some noise, and you're going to put a noise token there, and you're going to look at an additional card. Now you have your choice of 2 cards that you can choose to keep. Let's say I found 2 food here. That's not what I want. I want to keep searching more. I can make some more noise and search some more. Oh, I like that one. So either way, you're still only going to get 1 card, but by making noise, you'll be able to look at additional cards. So I can say, okay, I'm going to choose to keep this one. So this one that you keep goes to your hand, and any others will go to the bottom of that deck there. Now, these locations usually don't get shuffled, so sometimes when you pass up on something, you may not get to see it again. So now, what do these noise tokens do? There's a point in the game where more zombies are going to be added to the board, and for each noise token there's a 50-50 chance decided by a die roll whether an extra zombie appears or not. So making noise will attract more zombies. Another action that you can do that requires a die is a barricade option. Now the barricade, you can use it with any die. So if you roll like something bad, like a 1 on a die, you can at least still do something on it. You can add these barricade tokens to space in the board. You would add them in any space where normally a zombie would go, and you can't add it to a space where there already is a zombie, but you can add it to any space where you have a character. So for instance, I have a character here at the hospital, I can add a barricade token here, or if I have somebody at the colony, I can add barricade tokens to there. And all the what the barricade tokens do is that if one of the locations is full of zombies and a new one were to be added, but there's a barricade there, instead of adding the zombie, you would just simply remove the barricade. Now, why would you want to do that? The reason is because if a location is full, like this one is, it's full of zombies. Now, normally those zombies won't do anything to your character. However, if we're supposed to add an extra zombie here and we cannot because there's no more room, then that place is considered overrun, and the player or character with the lowest influence at that location will be eliminated. They will die, and of course the group loses morale. Another action that you can do is you can sort of clean the waste pile. You can only do that if you have a character at the colony, and this is the waste pile here, and it's going to be building up cards. Now the waste pile is kind of bad because during the colony phase, if for every 10 cards that's there, the group is going to lose a morale point. So you can take the clean action that will let you remove 3 cards from the waste pile and remove them from the game. And then final action that requires a die is you can do the attract option. You can spend a die, and you'll be able to move any 2 zombies from anywhere on the board to your location. So you may want to do that if one place is getting overrun, or there's just a lot of different reasons why you want to do that, but that's the attract option. Now, there are some actions that do not require you to use a die. So for instance, playing a card. So you can play pretty much as many cards as you want from your hand for their effect. Just remember, most cards are going to be added to the waste pile, so you want to be a little bit stingy with how many cards you play, because adding to the waste pile and your secret objective may require you to have a certain kinds of cards in your hand by the end of the game. So playing a card does not require die. Adding cards to the crisis. So on your turn, you can choose to add cards to the crisis, which go here under crisis contributions. Like I mentioned before, the crisis wants a certain number of cards in order to be avoided. You will take the cards, you can contribute as many as you want, but you always contribute them face down. You cannot show the other players what you put in there, but you can tell the other players. Now, this is the mechanic which allows the betrayer to sort of really mess with it, because now the betrayer can add in a card that does not match the type that's here. So for instance, this horde here wants this equipment icon, but if I'm the betrayer, I can add this sort of gas icon card here. Now the bad thing about those is that each card that is added there that does not match the type not only does not count against it, it subtracts one from the other player. So adding just one, can really screw it up there. Another action that does not require a die is moving your survivors. Now each survivor can only move once per turn, but it doesn't cost a die, so I can take this character here, move from the library to the hospital. However, every time that you move a character, you must roll the exposure die unless you have some kind of special ability that says otherwise. So you kind of want to be careful how much you move. Spending food token is another action. You're going to be accumulating food tokens in the colony here. Now instead of feeding the colonists, you can eat the food to move your dice up one. So let's say I had a 3 on my die and I really need a 4 for an action. I can eat a food token to upgrade that to a 4, and then I can take the action. So, but that doesn't require you to use a die to do that. There is the request option. You can request cards from the other player. Let's say you need a fuel card. You want to move a character without having to roll the exposure die. You can request a fuel card. You can request a food card, a medicine card, or anything like that. When you request a card, it's optional for the other players whether they want to give it to you or not. However, if they do give you the card that you ask for, you must use it immediately. You cannot request a card and then hoard it. Some cards are equipment cards that you can play and equip to your characters. Now, a character can have any number of equipment cards attached to them, and they can actually switch it between each other. And that's the handoff option. Basically, if I have two characters at the same location, one has equipment that wants to give to the other, I just say that I'm going to pass it over to them, and then you just simply give it to them. So, very simple. And then the last action that does not require a die is the vote to exile. If you believe that a player is a betrayer or is detrimental to the group, you can call a group vote to exile that player. And the players would just simply vote with a thumbs up or thumbs down whether they want that player to be in or not. If there's a tie, the player with the start player token will decide, what happens there. Now, if a player gets exiled from the colony, what will happen is they will draw one of these exile cards, and this card will tell you what you do next. It will tell you if you are the betrayer, if you're not the betrayer, what you do, and essentially they're going to give you new objectives of how now you're going to win the game. So then the players are going to be taking their turns one at a time. And then after all the players have taken their turns, the round ends, and then we're going to go into a colony phase. So the first thing that's going to happen in the colony phase is we must pay food for the colonists. Now, it's only counting colonists that are actually in the colony. So anybody that's out does not count towards it. They're considered to be foraging for their own food. So at that point, you're going to have to pay 1 food for every 2 survivors that are in the colony. Pretty simple. If you cannot pay the food, then you'll pay no food, but then you'll need to add a starvation token, which will lose morale for every starvation token that you have. So the first starvation token, not so bad, but once you get multiples of them, they can be really bad and cause you to lose the game very quickly. The next thing you're going to do on the colony phase is you're going to check for waste. You're going to count the number of cards in the waste pile. For every 10 cards in there, you're going to lose 1 morale. Then we're going to resolve the crisis. This is the part we're going to see if there's somebody has betrayed us or not. There's going to be, by that point, there'll probably be a number of cards in the contributions. You're going to shuffle them up, and then you're going to reveal them one at a time. And if you have enough to resolve the crisis safely, you'll resolve it fine. And otherwise, you'll lose it and you'll apply the negative effects. But you resolve the crisis, that's simple. Then we come to a part where you're going to add zombies. Now, zombies are going to appear pretty much anywhere that there are characters. So at the colony, for every 2 colonists that are there, 1 zombie will appear. Now, adding zombies to the colony is a little bit different than the locations. As I noticed, we pointed out before that each entrance to the colony has a number, numbered 1 through 6. Every time you add zombies to the colony, there's going to be a number. So something may say add 3 zombies to the colony or add 4 zombies. You're always going to add them in numerical order. So you're going to add 1 zombie to number 1, then 2, then 3, and so on. And so the spot number 1 will fill up and be overrun much faster than spot number 6. So that's the adding zombies at the colony. At the locations, it's a little bit different. Since you're running around and making probably more noise at these locations, one zombie is going to appear for every single character that is there. So at this location, we only have one character, so we're only going to add one zombie there. If there were two characters, we'd add two. And that's the add zombies phase. Pretty simple, except if there is these noise tokens. So let's take this as an example. She's here by herself. We'd be adding one zombie here, and then for each noise token, we're gonna roll a die, and on a 1, 2, or 3, it's gonna add a zombie. On a 4, 5, or 6, nothing happens. After we've added the zombies, then we're going to check if we've achieved the main objective. If so, then the game is going to end and the players are going to check it to see if they've resolved their secret objectives. If the main objective has not been completed, then we're going to end up going on into another round. So then at that point, you're going to move the round tracker down and the start player token will pass. Now, to note, the start player token is going to pass to the right. So if you were last in a turn, you're pretty much going to get 2 turns in a row. So sort of the benefit for being last in a turn. Now, one of the more unique aspects of this game is the crossroads cards, where there's this large deck of these crossroads cards here. Now, when it's your turn, the player to your right is actually going to draw one of these cards, and he's going to look at the top line. And the top line is sort of a trigger as to whether this card happens or not. So that player's going to read that top line secretly to themselves, and if at that point or at any point during that player's turn, if that trigger happens, then they're going to tell the other player stop, and they're going to read out the card in its entirety. Now, the first part of the card is sort of a story event that you'll read out to them, and then there'll be a number of options, and usually it's a choice for that player to make. Sometimes it may be a group decision. And they'll have sort of different effects. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. Some of them kind of don't even really give you an option at all. But it's just some of these will happen and some won't. So it's very possible that every turn one of these will be firing off, and some of them are very oddly specific. So some will say if the player controls a specific character and it does a certain specific action, then it'll happen. And but those add a lot of fun to the game. You sort of kind of need to get into it though when you're playing, because a lot of this game is about being very thematic and getting into the sort of the story on it, and those crossroads cards really help with that. So that's the game overall. You're gonna play through the rounds, doing different things, and the round track is gonna be going down. The morale is gonna be going up and down. Most of the time, it's gonna be going down, and you're either going to complete the main objective, or maybe the betrayer is going to get the morale down to 0. But at a certain point, the game is going to end either by the main objective being completed or the morale going to 0. And then at that point, the players are each individually going to check their secret objectives, and they'll decide whether they won or not. Alright, so I absolutely love this game, Dead of Winter. I went to Gen Con 2014, and I had a list of games that I wanted to pick up there that were coming out for the first time, that weren't going to be out for a few months, and Dead of Winter was my top pick at the time. I had not played it, didn't really know a whole lot about it, but I did read a bunch of things, and I just sort of pegged it as I think that's going to be a winner for the year. And at least for me, I was not wrong. I've been playing this pretty much every single game night. This hits the table. Everybody loves it. I've played it with newer players and experienced players, and everybody just really has a blast with it. Co-op games really always go over well, but because this one's it's a semi-co-op, and that little betrayer aspect of it is just it just adds so much drama and makes the game a real thriller, because they were ingenious the way they designed the secret objective cards. Is that even the ones that aren't bad, that they're good for the group, they usually have some kind of selfish thing to them that makes you look bad. So for instance, in one game I was playing in where my secret objective was that my group was hungry and we wanted food, so it required me to hoard some of the food cards. So I had to be careful, and I needed to add food for the group to be able to eat, but I needed to hold some back, and there were times that I had to lie to the other players and tell them I didn't have food when I really did. And it wasn't anything that I was trying to do to ruin the group, because I wasn't the betrayer, but my secret objective, was basically telling me that. So, the chance that there may be a betrayer there is just adds so much to it. Again, like I said, I've played it. There's rules in here to do a fully co-op variant, and it just loses so much. It's just, you feel like you're just kind of going through the motions. You need that, having that betrayer aspect there. It adds so much. The quality of the game is also very good. I mean, the artwork is fantastic. They do something in this game that I absolutely love, is that each character is an actual character. They're just not, I mean, they are cardboard cutouts, but the way they're drawn, and each one has sort of a different role to them. So there's the soldier, there's the cook, there's a mother character, there's a nurse, there's a teacher. So there's people from regular walks of life in here, and the personality of them comes through when you look at their character card and their ability. So it makes it so that when a character dies, you sort of feel it, especially if it's the dog. There's a stunt dog character that everyone seems to love playing as, and it adds to a little bit of hilarity to the game, because you can have the dog running around locations and he may pick up weapons. So we had a game where the player was playing as the dog, and he had a shotgun and the blueprints to school, and he was kind of running around wrecking havoc. And so there's a little bit of humor to the game, and some people don't like that. I think it's okay. I think it helps the game a little bit, because this game can be kind of dark with the crossroads cards. I mean, some of them are pretty bleak. Like one of the ones, I don't want to do too many spoilers, but there's one where the character finds a horse as he's traveling, and you have to make a decision whether you want to take the horse and use it for transportation, which will basically keep you from having to roll that dreaded exposure die. However, each round the colony as a group will have to feed this horse, so you're spending more food. Or the option is you can just kill the horse and eat it for food. And so the game has these moral decisions in there, and sometimes they're not very obvious of what the right thing to do. I mean, we had one situation where a player decided to save the horse, but then later on sacrificed one of the children in the colony, and it's like, that's kind of weird and pretty dark. But game mechanic wise, there was reasons why he did that. And my favorite thing about the game is that you're gonna come away with a unique story every time. Between all the different characters, you're not gonna usually see all the characters every game, so there's a randomness in which characters appear and what they do with the different secret objectives. There's gonna be a lot of different gameplay, and the game feels very different depending what your objectives are. If you're a character that's trying to hoard stuff, you're going to feel a lot more different than if you're playing a character that's trying to kill off a certain amount of characters, or if your character's trying to save a bunch of characters. So there's so many different objectives, and they really change how you play. And so all of that combined just adds a lot to the game. In fact, I feel like if any one of those pieces was missing, then you would feel it. The game wouldn't feel complete. And as it is, this is a game that I feel is complete. I don't really want to see expansions to this, and I don't think there's plans for expansions, because I feel like what I get in this box is everything that I need, and I love that. I don't feel like there's anything missing, there's anything more that needs to be added. And one thing that I look forward to is the fact that if you look at the bottom, it says that it's a crossroads game. That means that the Plaid Hat Games, the creators of it, are going to be coming out with a line of games in that crossroads genre, and each one's going to have a little bit different theme. So I believe that the voting came in on what the next game is going to be, and it's going to be a space survival game. Will that mean that it's science based? Is it going to be horror like this? I believe that it's going to be horror, but I don't know. So I'm looking forward to that. But I definitely tell you, I highly recommend this game. Even if you're not a big fan of co-op games, or especially if you're not a fan of zombies, give this one a try. Don't pass up on it just because you don't like the zombies. Like I tell people, yes, it's a zombie game. There are zombies in here, but it's not about the zombies. This is the game that those Walking Dead board games wish they were. They're nothing compared to this. This one gives that feeling. If you are a fan of the Walking Dead show, you'll feel like you're in an episode of this show, because you're gonna have these emotional highs and lows. You're gonna have a character that you're gonna sort of get attached to, and then they may die, and so there's just a lot to it. But again, I highly recommend this game. Go out and pick it up, and if you can't, or you can't find a copy, because I believe they are hard to get, definitely try to sit in on a game of it. You will not be disappointed. So if you like this video, if it has helped you out, please click like on this video. If there's some rules that I didn't go over every single rule, so if there's some rules that I didn't go over and you want some clarification, please go down in the comments. Let me know. I want to know any questions that you have. If you want just any more clarifications, please let me know. If you've been playing this game, I'd like to hear about you. Like, what are some really funny or odd situations that you've had? I mean, I have had a ton of them, so I would definitely like to share and talk about it. So if you want to keep up to date with all the other videos that I'm putting out, because I'm doing more reviews and things like that, so just please subscribe to the channel. I'll really appreciate it. And by subscribing and liking it, you'll be able to share this with your friends and family, and so it'll let them know about this game. So so until my next video, you guys have a great day.